Yes, my people. It's your boy Beej,
It's your boy Sab.
I'm Alia.
and you're tuning in for another episode of Blocks of Bags. As you guys know, we have been on a run. We have been trying to chop up as much content for you guys as possible, giving you guys all the gems you need for 2024. We're that podcast where you can get all your gems around creator, entrepreneurship, and investment. You obviously have lived other lives as well. We kind of went very deep in your international bag, very deep in the research and some of the kind of mindsets type of stuff there. We could have probably done a bit more mindset as well, like how you deal with cash flow and how you deal with pagans in the industry, because they do pop up, you know. But I want to talk about something that, you know, me and Seb are very passionate about, which is doing stuff at a level of excellence. And when we think of level of excellence, and you think of music in this country, Glastonbury is one of the biggest festivals and prime real estates out there that artists, festival goers, and punters look towards.
Yeah.
You've had your own stage out there,
10
Rum
plus
Shack,
years.
for more than a decade now.
It's a long time, man.
A lot of people have come through.
Yeah.
There's probably been highs and lows, but a lot more highs.
Mainly highs,
You know, because it's a celebration. But tell us a story. How does one get their own stage at Glasgow? Let's start there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a bit of a dream of mine, to be honest. I've been to Glastonbury since about 2000 and I think my first one was like 2004, and I don't think I've missed a year. So it's about almost 20 years.
By the way, guys, I've just given up tickets to next year's Glastonbury.
Yeah. They were there for you, bruv. Just saying.
I know. But yeah, go on, tell us a story.
But yeah, like, as someone who loves music, Glastonbury is heaven. Like, it is just a place where, imagine a shopping mall, imagine like Bluewater or Westfield, and every shop is a stage. I've never thought of it in those terms, but it's like that. You can just go into any shop that you want, and you don't want to listen to music. You want to go get a massage. You want to go do a sauna. You want to go listen to a talk about nuclear disarmament or how to whittle wood. Like, brilliant. Do it all. But the way it happened was a guy called Steve Bedlam, who's really instrumental in the counterculture scene. He's set up a thing called Bedlam Sound System, which was one of the kind of formative sound systems in the Free Party era, kind of like early 90s, basically advent of rave. We were doing an event together, ironically at the Roundhouse, and we got on. He liked my music, and he was having conversations with Glastonbury where he somewhat stupidly put his hand up in the middle of the meeting and said, "I'll take on that field," and then was like, "Oh, what have I done? I need to somehow work out how I'm going to create a field at Glastonbury," because he was already working there, he was supplying sound systems there.
So keyword, relationships.
Exactly. And this is the point. It just literally came from just having conversations. And whilst that might sound like a bit of an easy answer to something which is many people's dreams, like, you never know when those conversations will come to fruition and lead you somewhere. And that, you know, it was years before anything happened, but when the opportunity came up in his head, he thought of me. And so part of it's about leaving impressions, part of it's having meaningful conversations. And then ultimately in 2011, actually, this is a bit of a prelude to the Rum Shack, because what happened was, with MSF, the charity that I was working with, they got approached by Glastonbury to run a stall, and ultimately they were like, "Hey, do you want to come run a stall?" And they told me about it, and I was like, "That's great, but you're gonna just hand out leaflets in a late night field at Glastonbury? Like, who's gonna take a leaflet? Like, how about we ... So basically, me and this woman called Jo, who was running the events at the time, who would later become my partner, romantically, and we're still together, like, God knows how long, I guess that's 12 years later.
Raising a young prince as well.
Yeah, right. We formulated this proposal, which kind of grew into this installation, which involved loads of MSS staff, logisticians, doctors, nurses in the venue during the daytime, with pop-up operating theatres and shipping containers with Land Rovers that they would use in the field, and all of this presented as an exhibition specifically about the work that they did in Haiti, because around then was the cholera outbreak and the earthquake, and all of, like, you know, about 250,000 people died, and so we wanted to tell the story of that work. The music that we programmed in there, we included people like Ghost Poet, and Ed Sheeran played one of his first Glastonbury gigs there. And then we did this kind of a side rave on a Saturday, and we had some major pop stars perform. Neo performed also with the box sets. So we had all these people in the space.
Just casual names, Neo, Ed Sheeran,
Casual.
the box sets. Yeah.
And then from that, I got noticed for programming, which was basically what I love doing. I love curating spaces. I love bringing people together, and I love being able to like weave a narrative through music and performance. And essentially, what ended up happening was they were like, well, we're starting this venue called the Rum Shack in next year. Do you want to run it? And so that's basically how it started, and we haven't looked back since. So for people who don't know what the Rum Shack is, it's a 1,000-person venue. It's DJs, it's live music from like 8 till 6 in the morning. So it bangs. And it can be anything from Mexican 12-piece bands that we've flown over from Latin America, to drum and bass and jungle DJs, to a lot of dancehall and reggae and Afro beats. Basically, it's a lot of sound system culture in its widest kind of form, but threaded together with that kind of Lyrix Organix heart and soul. And to be honest, like, I could have never imagined how beautifully it's gone. You're right, though, there have been lows. It hasn't always been plain sailing, but the amount of stuff that I've learned through doing something as like scary as that, potentially, especially on like a health and safety level. You know, one year we had Mike Skinner from the streets was a resident there for a number of years as a DJ before he came back. In fact, actually, it was a gig at the Rum Shack which inspired him to come back touring again, when he saw like Dry Your Eyes sung back to him from the Rum Shack crowd, and he basically turned around to his missus and were like, I think we might need to do this again. So that is like, you know, the streets is like one of my heroes. So like the fact that this happened on our stage was exactly what is kind of like the kind of the culmination of everything that Lyrix Organix is about. And I think there's a recognition that Lyrix Organix has a glass ceiling to it. And part of that is about the hierarchy in the music system. Part of it is about the challenge of being an entrepreneur. Part of it is about finding money and grant funding to do stuff. And then there's Glastonbury, where you don't have to sell tickets to your venue, where you're constantly going to get a crowd. And if you put on the right stuff and it bangs, people will come. Yeah. So the ethos behind the Rum Shack is basically, once you get in there, you never want to leave.
You just reminded me about grant funding and stuff. We need to have a chat about the youth club and stuff.
Yeah, let's do it.
We got half the bag that we need, but together.
Yeah.
Amazing. So,
what are you saying?
I wanted you to talk to event producers, event organizers, experience creators, because this is something that I wanted to do last year. I said, I've never organized an event. This year, on to nearly our 10th event that we've kind of organized. And I think live experiences and events have kind of had a bit of a resurgence after sort of the pandemic, COVID. You've obviously been running a successful experience at Glastonbury for over a decade. What advice do you have? Or like, let's say we were to do like a case study, how would like someone like me, like an event producer or an event organizer, break into like an international festival and maintain a presence or programming there for like a long-term sort of partnership or a long time?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I feel like I've kind of hit a rare diamond, and I'm not sure how replicable it is in some ways. But speaking to, not to kind of make it sound like it's inaccessible, it's not that. It's just, I think I got really lucky. It's basically what I'm saying. But with regards to kind of producing events, like, and especially at kind of internationally recognized venues and festivals, it's difficult because a lot of people try and do it on the back of their individual kind of as an event producer, was actually what it is about brands. If you think about a festival, even if you think about a venue, a lot of people forget the economics of it, right? A festival sells tickets not on the basis of how good the festival is. necessarily. It sells tickets on the basis of its poster. What are the names on the poster? And the kind of the mathematics of a customer is, okay, I know that artist, I could pay £80 to go see them at the O2, or I could spend £300 and see 6 of my favourite artists play probably their biggest show of their career. The maths of that is a no-brainer to me, because I am going to spend that 80 quid or I am going to spend that 300 quid. And I'm not saying those are necessarily accessible prices. They're not at all. But, you know, the way that a festival or venue booker will work is, how likely are they going to attract an audience? How likely are they going to sell tickets for our event or bring people to our space? And so when it comes to being an event producer, there's kind of two routes there. One is being an event producer, supporting other people, and then the other is running your own event and getting that into events, into festivals. And I feel like with the latter, so with getting the brand, it's about all of the things we already know, you know, building that traction, building that community, showing that you're doing something that is markedly different from other people. Because, for example, if we are Lyrix Organix and we say we do rap and poetry, for example, there's not a lot of organisations that do that now. And frankly, and all power to them, there's a lot of organisations now that take the space that we previously would have taken or are unable to take because they might do it for cheaper, or they're younger, or they've got particular artists or whatever. And that's good. I'm like all in favour. I think in the music industry, there's arguably too much competition in terms of creativity. And as a result, we need to think about how we separate ourselves and what our kind of what our niche is, and what are we really doing with our messaging? Because often as well, to kind of double down on that, a lot of festivals are not looking at the brand solely in terms of which artists they're booking and how many tickets they're selling and what venues they're selling out, but their messaging. Because if you look at somewhere like Glastonbury, definitely, but other places like, I don't know, higher end festivals like Latitude or Wilderness, or kind of arguably more homogenous festivals, people are buying into your values, as they are in any other part of, you know, kind of industry. And so for event producer, for an event brand, I would say really making sure that your values are clear, like shouting about all the things you're doing and all the venues that you've been working with, because frankly, it's a ladder and you have to be able to show what you did previously. I think with event producers, it's slightly different. The shortcut answer is attach yourself or find work within those brands that you see with that potential.
I'm taking notes of those gems. And
how are you finding putting on 10 events? How's it been?
It's quite funny because
you've got a business partner, you're not doing it by yourself.
Business partner, but I'm not gonna lie, as a digital marketer, I used to sit behind a laptop and say, oh, how hard could this be?
Yeah.
I said, oh, it's real life events. Oh, how hard could this actually like be? But it is definitely tough.
Yeah.
But it's like rewarding in a way that you can't really describe until like the event is finished and everything's done. But for me, it's just, number one, it's like before the event is just as important as in the event, because you need to have a hype plan. You need to get enough registrations or ticket buyers to actually come to your event, and you've got to prepare like the stuff like mailing lists, sign up forms, all of these things.
Stressy, right?
It definitely is. But also, I'm not gonna lie, working as a team, we've come up with some really, really good ways in which we can segment and outsource certain things.
Yeah.
We like to use stuff like automation to be able to send out automated emails and stuff like that once people sign up to the kind of event. But then also, as I said, like the media aspect of it, making sure you capture all the highlights and making sure that that moment lives on forever in the sort of internet or on social media, because like it's all well and good doing an event, but how do you capture that moment in time and amplify it?
That's the one. Because like a lot of people get caught up in the beauty of that kind of ephemeral, intangible thing of an event. And there's no denying that beautiful alchemy that happens creating that space. But yeah, what happens after? Like, it has to live forever. For Lyrix Organix, it was every single event I do, I get photographed. I've got a 15-year archive of shows that we've done. I mean, we've done hundreds of shows, and I've just been going back through the archive just in the last few weeks, actually, and that's legacy right there. An event on its own, without that kind of evidence, doesn't have the same level of legacy.
Yeah.
And that is a shame in my eyes.
So we like to give people, practical stuff, and that's been a very practical conversation. Let's give you a little dilemma, let's go into a bit of a lesson. You know what I'm saying? So, as Seb rightly pointed out, there's a lot of events that we're doing now. I've been fortunate to be doing events since I was a teenager, so I have a different vantage point to him. But there are obviously new ways to do stuff. So sometimes I'll be like, I'm going to throw the rule book out and just test this and see that. So we've developed a couple of our own statement events this year that I think the people would see as a format. So how to make 100K, which we did with you guys, could run in so many different environments with so many different types of guests. Bag Drop, which we've just created, which is a Dragon's Den night times block party, no name badges, 50% of the audience are founders raising, 50% are investors currently investing, and then you have the melting pot of music and food and seeing what magic happens. We were going to do 1 a quarter. The demand is looking like we're going to do more than one a quarter. And then there's Block Brunch, which was our first big piece of work. I hope it's going to be like our seminal piece of work. We started off the gate with a podcast show, and our first event was on a yacht in Cannes, bringing over 200 people on a waiting list, no promotion, just word of mouth. And we brought people in to co-host. Yeah. So the challenge that I would love to us as a group to talk about is starting with your first block brunch like that. Where do you go next and how do you plan it? Because I like the idea of like, when you were saying, I almost stopped you when you said earlier about, international festival, you can't plug yourself. Cannes Lions is like a Glastonbury for the media and advertising world.
Yeah.
We've now got the opportunity to do block brunch yearly, bring in established stars and rising stars together. Do we do it yearly on a yacht? Do we go to a terrace by one of our partners? We also have the opportunity to take it to make it a fringe concept that exists in other international conferences. Yeah. So we're looking at being in New York, maybe in February. So you're the coach. We're the students, or we're co-coaching with you right now. Blocks and Bags are thinking about Block Brunch 2024. What are the things that we need to be thinking about? Do we want to talk about doing Block Brunch New York or Block Brunch Cannes? Let's first decide.
Okay. Let's go in New York.
Okay, Block Brunch New York. So it's going to be February 2024.
Let me ask you a question, which might seem quite superficial.
I've got some answers to some of the value stuff that you asked. We wrote.
Okay, cool. How important was the boat? How crucial was the boat to the brand of Block Brunch?
I think the boat was crucial for the first story and the marker, but it's not crucial to the story forever. So the idea that two African boys who've grown up their teenage years in London are going to do their first international event together in Cannes, and there's no sponsor, and it off the gate is going to be something that bridges the gap between the executives that they know and the agency friends they know, and it be in a place of opulence and excellence where people can feel like I'm going to something I'm excited about. It felt very important for that to be a marker for us. And Cannes, the way it's set up, you're on a June time, there's a lot of yacht events and a lot of beach events. So it worked for the location. New York is not, you don't go to New York and think of a yacht. Unless you're part of that experience. When you do think of rooftops and clubs, there's loads of other things. But I would say, I would love to hear your opinion, but I think it was seminal and important to allow people to know in our community, like, yes, we can do this. Like, yeah, you people are, oh my God, how did you... No, this is where we're at now, guys. And we were like, meet the owner of the... We were like, we wouldn't hide a plug. Meet the owner. He wants to meet diverse people.
People mingling with the plug.
Nice.
Do you know what I'm saying? That was our vibe. Yeah. And I'm sure others are going to do stuff there next year. No problem.
Yeah.
But when we got the feedback from people, it was like, that's one of my best events I've been to. And the budget we spent versus what other people were spending on their events drastic difference.
Yeah.
1,000%, if not 150% difference.
I mean, from the sounds of it,
So the yacht is not crucial
Exactly.
for every experience, but it was crucial for Block Brunch 1.
so for me, it sounds like you have something special there, because frankly, if you're rolling on a yacht and that wasn't the kind of necessarily the number one priority of people there, and actually the values and the ethos of the event shone through regardless, then you've got something where actually what people are buying into is you guys and that space that you're creating and the way that you're creating it. So let me ask you another question. What are the top 2 things that make that space different to a similar event at Cannes or New York?
Yeah, I would. Number one, it was quite clear. It was the diversity.
Yeah.
On that boat. People said this is the most diverse event that they've been to. Obviously, we know a lot of.
So very media and marketing heavy.
Yeah, so
But diversity within that sector.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Pick a niche and you diversify.
Exactly.
I think we stick with media and marketing for Block Brunch, in my opinion.
Yeah, no facts. And then I think just, I would say like the raw organicness of the kind of event.
Yeah.
It wasn't overly produced like a lot of the Cannes events, and you've got the big celebrity speakers. Okay, we were next to Gary Vee's yacht, which was quite interesting as well. And we were kind of seeing what kind of events that he had going on. Just right after we threw our event, he had like an artist, Junior Choi, and some other, maybe Ivorian doing like a panel on music and kind of marketing, and there was seats out, and it was all very conferencey, seminary. But we could see him looking at our boat thinking, yo, yeah, that looks like a vibe. So I think just the organic vibe, and just that it wasn't like super overproduced, and it was just like something different. Like when it was towards the end of Cannes, so people had already been to a couple of different events, and it just felt like a breath of fresh air to them. That's the feedback I got. Which
is amazing. And people would give their right arm to have that level of authentic kind of space. You can't design that space. It is who you are. And so my next question is, how's that translated or communicated into the marketing and visuals? Like, how do people know that it's diverse, that it's raw, that it's different and not overly produced? Like, how does that reflect? Like, if I didn't know who you guys were and I turned up to, I've got this kind of menu of events to go to, and sometimes you may just be on a list, right? Mm-hmm. So they may not even have the benefit of a blurb or a photo or anything like that. Like, how might people know that you're legit?
So what we did, and what I think we should continue doing, is we took control of the landing page. So we didn't just make an Eventbrite. We made a landing page within the Blocks to Bags ether, which is our own website, blockstobag.com. So there was a Block Brunch tab.
Nice.
And you're right. How are people going to know about us, especially if they don't know who we are? People in our world know who we are, but part of the magic of this is actually people bringing new people together. So the strat that we had, and I think something we should continue doing, is giving different people their own guest lists. So we created co-hosts, and we highlighted and celebrated other champions in the industry, and they became our co-hosts.
Nice.
So we know that there was all these people coming anyways. We didn't announce. We ended up having some really great speakers who ran some really big multi-million-pound thing. That was a surprising delight moment. So people weren't even coming for that. They got that on top. So we probably should keep that as a thing.
Yeah.
Surprising delight. So it wasn't, people weren't coming to see this speech. They were coming because these 8 people were co-hosting, and people from the following brands were coming. Because you can look at our guest list, and we kept updating the logos of where people were coming from.
Yeah.
So you had Google, VCCP, Disney, and a few other like local agencies. So even people who were small agencies felt proud. So as they were meeting people up through the week, they're like, at TikTok or whatever, I'm doing this yacht party, come down. And then that microcosm of interesting people attract interesting people became a really fascinating thing, and we oversubscribed. So I think if we're doing New York as well, it's like, who are your co-hosts and how are they talking about it? Because that was part of the magic.
Absolutely. And I think even on a small level, that's exactly the principle that Lyrix Organix was founded from, which is
My biggest wins come from collaboration. If I think about my whole career,
exactly. And you activate your people, your audiences as your ambassadors. And that is a large part of growth, and especially internationally, where you may not have those connects in the country itself. You need someone to do that legwork and need someone to be your champions. So part of it is about that realization that you have to activate people and bring them on the journey with you, which sounds like you're already doing. I think one thing that I've learned from, I went to Miami Art Basel a few years ago, which, different thing, but, the similarities, there's
yeah.
We would love to be. I mean, that sounds
huge circuit of just like
right now.
stuff happening all the time. And it's like, how do you compete where all the best galleries in the world and all of the best artists and whole districts of Miami are taken over for a particular type of art. In my case, Wynwood for street art was like a mecca. Basically, it was unbelievable. And the question is, like, how do you make yourself different in that space? Because essentially you're competing for, there's an element where people come because they're genuinely interested and attracted by whatever you're offering, but then at the same time there's also people want to be seen at your spot. And so it's kind of a half question, really, which is, because I think I know the answer, is like how much is the media and the kind of the after movies and so on part of the strategy? Because ultimately, and I say this to everyone, whether they're putting on a 30-person gig or whether they're putting on a 50,000-person festival, is how are you triggering that FOMO in people? Like, how are you making people be like, ish, I missed that? Like, that's basically the calling card. Because if you can make people, because the reality is, and this is a difficult thing, you're asking about the second event, right? The second event is always the most difficult event. In some ways, saying New York is much easier than saying Cannes again, because you have a new audience to play with, and you can actually apply almost literally the same strategy that you did for Cannes in New York, give or take, the cultural and kind of country and kind of festival difference. The problem with doing the same event in the same place is that the people who went there last year were like, oh, I went there last year, right? And that's really difficult, because when if you imagine a festival selling tickets, they have to constantly battle that. How do you retain that audience for what's an experience? Now, people got that experience, it's in their back pocket, they can keep that and talk about it at dinner to people and kind of serve their ego that way. But then what is it that brings them back is the question. So let me flip this a little bit. If you were to do it in Cannes a second time round, how would you try and get the people who were there last time back again, or is it a whole new audience?
I think the reviews were so good that people are already asking us. Like, people have already been talking to us about, hey, I saw that thing you're doing, we want to come through. So I'd probably have even more hosts, even more co-hosts.
100%.
Yeah, even more co-hosts. Let it sell out quicker, and then negotiate and barter with the yacht to maybe have like 2 experiences rather than 1. So that's something that I think we will do. Everyone loves a lot of the big wigs love they'll put on the website thing. We didn't think that was a thing, but it's a thing. Everyone, we've been talking about doing this podcast for a while. Be Jonathan on the podcast. I ask people that when am I coming to the show? It's like, people love
recognition.
The recognition. It doesn't have to be an ego thing. It's just people want to share their story.
Of course.
So that's one thing I think we could do that will guarantee people coming back, because then when you announce it, people are like, oh my God. And then you can do a pre-email to everyone that came saying, hey, we're giving you just like O2 Priority do. We're giving you a week free dab before it goes out to the general public.
Nice.
And give them a bit of this is what else we got coming. And then last thing that we didn't do, but we do now, is wristbands, different colored wristbands for different people. as a way of networking, not
Nice.
just for VIP,
Nice.
but for a way of networking.
Yeah.
So people were meeting people, but also vibing. But this time you can go, right, agency founder, experience founder, so people can actually know who they're talking to without having to like do the who are you kind of vibe. So there's subtle things you can do sensorily and also colours that I think we can bring in that we've been doing on our other events that make that event 10x.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, something...
So waitlist, priority list and platforming.
Yeah, and I think, but you touched on something there which is really interesting, and again, is something that's really different to what you guys do. You know, you have to remember that growing up in the kind of UK culture, we're tremendously blessed to have a lot of experience with kind of workshops and youth clubs, and you know, be exposed to different facilitators and their kind of creative practice. And one of the reasons that you guys are different and raw is because not only you coming from that kind of entrepreneurial commercial investment space, but also you have an understanding of the grassroots of culture and community, and that's what sets you apart. And part of what comes with that is what you're saying, is like how you open up spaces and things that you do which aren't just, you know, because most people, and you guys would have more experience of this than I would, but a corporate space has a kind of a glass ceiling of a toolbox, right? Because of a breadth of experience that they may or may not have. And I think the added dimension that you have is this kind of cultural and creative awareness, which is embedded in us, which makes us think and do things differently. And I think that by thinking about the way that the wristbands they wear and sensory stuff and how they connect with each other beyond like basic networking games are the things that people will really come away from, and are the things where, you remember like when we did that Roundhouse Music Accelerator thing, I came up with this, was it that one that I came up with that silly idea about the chopsticks? I basically came up with this networking game where you give everyone like a number of chopsticks, and once the aim of the game was to get rid of all the chopsticks. And so in a limited amount of time, it was basically making something which a lot of that kind of demographic may find really dry and boring because that's not them necessarily, into something which is more of a game. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of it is flipping conventions on its head, which you guys are perfectly positioned to do because you have such diversity of ideas and experience, is that really that kind of immersive experience is sounds like the thing that people are taking away from it. It's like they're coming away being like, damn, I've never been to anything like that before. And it's giving them fresh ideas, and you're working with people who are about ideas and love innovation and, you know, just want something different because they go into these things a lot. And so I think I would encourage you to think really carefully and maybe even bring in like, you know, kind of a master facilitator or consultant or someone to be like, okay, this is the kind of activity that we want to do. Let's see how we can rip it up and reimagine it. And I think, you know, you don't want to do that too much because at the same time, you want people to feel safe and like, you know, have things that they know. Too experimental can be too much for many people. But just a few like well-timed, like unusual interventions that catch people off guard are, you know, psychologically speaking, that, you know, that, what did you call it? The surprise thing?
Surprise and delight.
Surprise and delight. I love that because you want to catch people differently. And, you know, going back to the Glastonbury example, the reason I love Glastonbury is because you can see any given artist play their touring show, and you could have paid to see that show in O2, but you guarantee they're going to do something different at Glastonbury because they understand it's Glastonbury. And A lot of that audience may have already come to see them before, or B, you've got to do something different because that's where it's at. And so I think memories are made out of the most unexpected places. And if you can put people in those unexpected places in a safe way, then you can just create magic.
What a dilemma answer that was. So stay tuned, guys, for the announcement of the waitlist for Block Brunch 2. Actually, we're just going to pop a link there. You can put your email if you want to be invited, because you know we're going to do it. We ain't going to just give you guys gem and not show you how we do it. So stay tuned. Dan, it has been a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
I have been your boy Beej.
I'm your boy Seb.
I'm Alia.
I've been Dan.
And this is another episode of Blocks to Bags.